5 digital horror stories that should never have been recorded. The internet connects billions of us. It holds our secrets, our histories, and our futures. But just like any nervous system, it can have its own nightmares. Some rabbit holes don't lead to Wonderland. They lead to terrifying, real-life mysteries that were never meant to be found, glitches in the code of our shared reality. We're about to explore 5 of these stories. From a woman who seems to be trapped on a live stream for over a decade, to a global puzzle designed to recruit geniuses for some unknown, and maybe unknowable, purpose. These are the digital horror stories that should never have been recorded. Section 1. The Perpetual Prisoner of Webcam C01. First up, we're heading to a place known for creating as many nightmares as it has memes. The anonymous image board 4chan. Back in 2008, users in a thread dedicated to finding unsecured webcams stumbled upon something deeply unsettling. It was a grainy feed from a small, cluttered apartment in South Korea. On screen, a woman lay motionless, sometimes for 12, even 20 hours a day, often in strange, uncomfortable positions. At first, people thought they'd found a crime scene, that the woman was dead. She wasn't. The internet would come to know her as Chip-chan. For over a decade now, Chip-chan has been broadcasting her life from webcams set up in her apartment. The streams show her living in a state of extreme exhaustion, surrounded by clutter and handwritten signs in Korean that describe a terrifying reality. Chip-chan claims she's being held captive by a corrupt cop she calls P. She alleges that since 1999, this officer has been controlling her with a Verikit device implanted in her ankle, a chip that can force her into sleep for long periods and monitor her every move. The reason? According to theories pieced together from her blogs, P is trying to steal a large inheritance left to her by her parents. She believes the live stream is her only defense, a way to have constant witnesses in case P ever decides to show up. Over the years, a huge online community has formed around her, watching, worrying, and speculating. Is she the victim of some unbelievable technological conspiracy? Or is she suffering from a severe mental illness, like paranoid schizophrenia or narcolepsy, as many have suggested? Concerned viewers have contacted the police multiple times, but the Korean authorities have reportedly dismissed her as a known person with mental health issues. Her situation has never been resolved. After disappearing from her usual platforms for a while, Chip-chan returned, uploading videos to a YouTube channel. These videos document severe skin conditions, which she claims are caused by the mind control weapon. And so, viewers are left helpless, watching a life unfold in a state of perpetual crisis. A 24/7 horror story with no end in sight. Section 2. The Impossible Puzzle from the Depths of the Internet. On January 4th, 2012, a strange image appeared on 4chan. It was just white text on a black background with a simple but irresistible message. Hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. Find our message, and it will lead you on the road to finding us. It was signed 3301. And just like that, the world was introduced to Cicada 3301, probably the most elaborate and mysterious puzzle the internet has ever seen. That first image was just the beginning. People who extracted the hidden data were led down a massive rabbit hole of code breaking, hidden messages, classical literature, and philosophy. The puzzles weren't just digital either. They turned into a global scavenger hunt. Clues were found on physical posters taped to telephone poles in cities from Warsaw and Seoul to Miami and New Orleans. These weren't your average newspaper puzzles. The challenges were so sophisticated, they seemed designed for spies or elite hackers. One step led to a phone number in Texas that played a recorded message with the next set of instructions. Another part of the puzzle was an entire book of runes called the Liber Primus, or First Book. A new puzzle dropped in January 2013, and another in 2014. Then, silence. The stated goal was to recruit intelligent individuals, but nobody knows why. Theories range from a recruitment program for the CIA or MI6 to a secret society focused on privacy, or maybe even just a very, very complicated game. To this day, that third and final puzzle has never been completely solved. Large parts of the Liber Primus are still a mystery. No one has ever come forward claiming to have been recruited, and we still have no idea who was behind it all. As if it wasn't strange enough, in mid-2024, a new ransomware group started using the name Cicada 3301, though there's no proof linking them to the original puzzle makers. Section 3. The Urban Legend of Mariana's Web. You've probably heard of the dark web, that small, anonymous corner of the internet you can only get to with special browsers like Tor. It's famous for privacy and, well, illegal stuff. But what if there's something even deeper? A layer so hidden, it makes the dark web look like your browser's homepage? This is the legend of Mariana's Web. Named after the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth, this is a rumored, theoretical layer of the internet that's supposed to be impossible for normal people to access. According to the myth, you'd need technology that isn't widely available yet, a quantum computer. The idea is that the encryption is so complex, only a quantum computer could possibly crack it. So what's supposedly hiding down there? The theories are pretty wild. Believers claim it holds the world's most sensitive information, top secret government files, the real location of Atlantis, proof of alien contact, and even a powerful, self-aware AI that controls the whole network. It's sold as the internet's final frontier, its most protected and terrifying secret. So, is it real? Almost certainly not. Most experts agree that Mariana's Web is just an internet urban legend. It's a creepypasta that grew from a misunderstanding of how the internet is actually built. There's no real evidence that a layer like this exists. The whole iceberg chart of the web you've probably seen is a huge oversimplification that fuels these kinds of myths. And yet, the legend won't die. It taps into our fascination with the unknown and the fear of what secrets might be lurking just out of sight. While Mariana's Web is probably fiction, it's a powerful reminder of how much of the digital world we can't see, and it lets our imaginations run wild about what could be hiding in the deepest, darkest corners. Section 4. The game that tried to ascend its players. In 2013, a fan-made RPG called Kanye Quest 3030 showed up online. It was a weird, meme-filled adventure where you, as Kanye West, get sent to a dystopian future run by a clone of the rapper Lil B. It played like a classic Pokemon game, but you battled clones of other famous rappers. For a couple of years, it was just a funny, strange little piece of internet history. Then, in 2015, everything changed. A post on Pastebin revealed a massive secret hidden inside the game. If you typed the word ascend into a specific dialog box, you were suddenly transported to a hidden, sterile-looking area. The game's funny tone completely vanished. A terminal told you that the main game was just a front, and that this new section was designed to teach you something beneficial. What came next was a series of bizarre puzzles and QR codes. After solving them, you were asked to enter your personal information. It was deeply unsettling, and right away people started thinking the game was a recruitment tool for a cult. The name of this supposed cult? Ascensionism. Internet detectives found that the idea of Ascensionism actually existed before the game, with a draft wiki page about the movement dating back to 2006. The whole thing felt like a classic cult recruitment tactic. Start with a friendly invitation, flatter the person for being smart, and then dangle the prize of secret knowledge. For years, the mystery of who made the game and why haunted online forums. The truth finally came out when an Australian comedy duo, in their documentary series, Finding Yeezus, actually tracked down the creator. An artist named Clara Hope revealed that the whole thing started as a high school project. She later created the Ascend part as a separate, experimental game and just dropped it into Kanye Quest as a giant Easter egg. The cult was completely made up to add to the mystery. And even though the game asked for your info, data miners confirmed it was never actually sent anywhere. Section 5. The Cryptic Countdown to Nowhere. For our final story, let's talk about a website that was as simple as it was terrifying. oct282011.com. The site first popped up in 2011, and it was just a black screen with a few lines of cryptic text and a link. That link led to crude drawings of pyramids and references to Schrodinger's cat. The page also listed a phone number. The date itself, October 28, 2011, lined up with some interpretations of the Mayan calendar, which immediately sparked doomsday theories. The whole website felt like a cult recruitment page, with its focus on a future date and its strange philosophical text. But the truly creepy part was the phone number. People who called it reported all kinds of disturbing things. Most just heard a weird silence followed by a loud, jarring beep. But others claimed they heard heavy breathing, muffled voices, or the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. One person even said they heard a voice whisper, "It's him again." The internet went wild with theories. Was it an alternate reality game? A viral marketing campaign for a movie? A religious group predicting the end of the world? The mystery only got deeper when internet sleuths connected the site to a man named Thomas Ling, who apparently owned other, similarly bizarre websites. Then, October 28, 2011, arrived, and nothing happened. The date came and went without any disaster or big reveal. The website stayed online for a few more years, like a silent monument to a prophecy that never came true. Finally, in 2015, the site was taken down, vanishing just as mysteriously as it appeared. To this day, no one knows who is behind oct282011.com or what it was all for. It only exists now in screenshots and forum archives, a perfect example of a digital ghost, a brief, terrifying signal that broadcast a strange message into the void and then disappeared forever, leaving only questions behind. The internet is filled with these digital ghosts and unsolved mysteries. Many get forgotten, but some, like these, leave a permanent mark. What are some of the strangest internet rabbit holes you've fallen down? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to explore more of the web's dark and unsettling corners, make sure to subscribe. Conclusion. The stories of Chip Chan, Cicada 3301, Mariana's Web, Kanye Quest, and the October 28th website are more than just campfire tales. They're proof of how the internet can create mysteries that blur the line between what's on the screen and what's real. They show us that behind our curated feeds and polished websites, there's still a wild, unpredictable frontier. These stories were recorded and shared, but they serve as a chilling reminder that some digital doors, once you open them, might lead to places you can never really come back from. 5 true horror stories that still keep witnesses awake. You know, there are some places in this world, these vast, silent stretches of wilderness, that just don't play by our rules. You can head out for a simple afternoon hike and come back ... different. Or maybe not come back at all. Think about it. The silence of the forest is comforting, right? At least it is until you realize it's gone too quiet. That's the moment you hear it. The snap of a twig that sounds just a little too heavy to be a squirrel. The prickling feeling of eyes on your back when you know you're alone. For the people in these stories, that feeling became a terrifying reality. They went out into the wild, looking for peace, and came back with a story that would forever take it away. Brief introduction. Tonight, we're going into those dark, lonely places. And these aren't just campfire tales or spooky legends. These are the first-hand accounts of survivors, people who walked straight into the heart of nature and were met with something chillingly hostile. From the absolute terror of a predator to the unnerving presence of something that simply shouldn't exist. These are 5 true horror stories that still keep their witnesses wide awake at night. Story 1. The Weight of Silence. I've been an outdoorsman my whole life. Hunting, hiking, camping. The woods have always been my sanctuary. I thought I knew their language, you know, the rustle of leaves, the calls of the birds. But on one trip, deep in the Montana backcountry, I learned a new one. Dread. My hiking partner, Mark, and I had been trekking for 2 days. We were miles from any road, with nothing but pine and sky all around us. That morning, I told him I was going to go scout a ridge up ahead, while he stayed back to filter some water. That's when I noticed it, the silence. And it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was heavy, almost suffocating. The birds weren't singing. The squirrels had stopped chattering. It felt like the entire forest was holding its breath, just waiting. A primal instinct, one I'd never felt so sharply, screamed at me that I was being watched, hunted. I slowly scanned the tree line, my hand resting on the rifle I had slung over my shoulder. I saw nothing. I told myself I was just being paranoid. I turned to head back to Mark, and my blood ran ice cold. There, not 20 feet away, was a grizzly bear. But this wasn't just a bear. It was a wall of muscle and fur, and its eyes were locked right onto me with this terrifying intelligence. It wasn't startled or surprised. It had been stalking me. I had no time to think, no time to even get my rifle shouldered. It charged. The world just dissolved into a blur of teeth and claws. On pure instinct, I threw my rifle up to protect my head and neck as its full weight crashed into me. The force was unbelievable, like being hit by a car. I felt a searing pain as its claws tore into my arm and a crushing pressure on my skull. I was in pure survival mode, absolutely convinced that these were my last few seconds on Earth. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it was over. A gunshot cracked through the air, then another one. The weight vanished. I scrambled backward, my mind reeling, and saw Mark standing about 30 yards away, his own rifle raised. He'd seen the bear from a distance, watching me, and had run to try and intercept it. The bear was gone, melted back into the silent trees. But the silence it left behind felt different now. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with the memory of those few seconds. A memory that replays every single time I close my eyes, reminding me just how thin the line is between a quiet walk in the woods and a violent, brutal end. Story 2. The figure on the rocks. I'm a solo hiker. Always have been. I love the solitude, the challenge of only relying on myself. My favorite spot to get away was this remote boulder range, a wild jumble of massive rocks, miles from any marked trail. It was my escape. Until one day, it turned into something else. I was scrambling over the familiar granite, enjoying the burn in my legs and the huge, empty landscape. It was mid-afternoon, and I stopped on a ledge to catch my breath. As I scanned the area, a flicker of movement caught my eye. High up on a pile of boulders, maybe 100 yards away, something was watching me. It wasn't an animal. It was the silhouette of a person, tucked into the shadows between 2 giant rocks. My first thought was, oh, another hiker. I raised a hand to wave, but they didn't move. They just stayed there, a dark, still shape against the stone. A chill crawled up my spine. I was miles from anywhere. What were they doing, just hiding and watching? I yelled out, "Hello!" My voice echoed off the rocks, but the only answer was silence. The figure hadn't moved an inch. Suddenly, that isolation I'd always craved felt threatening. Every instinct in my body was telling me to get out of there. I didn't run. I was afraid of what that might trigger, but I moved with a purpose I hadn't felt all day, scrambling back down the way I came, forcing myself not to look back. The feeling of being watched was like a physical pressure on my back, the entire hike to my car. When I got home, still shaken, I went online to some local hiking forums and searched for the name of the boulder range. My heart just sank. I found a post from a woman a year earlier describing an almost identical experience, seeing a man hiding and watching her from those same rocks. Digging deeper, I found news articles. A man had been found dead there a few years back. He'd fallen from the rocks under mysterious circumstances. And a woman had been murdered in that same area a decade ago. I haven't been back. I don't know who or what I saw that day. Was it just some creep in the middle of nowhere? Or was I looking at the same predator that had claimed other lives? It's the not knowing that's the worst part. That figure on the rocks is burned into my memory. A silent observer in a place I once loved. A place that now only holds the terrifying echo of a narrow escape. Story 3. 9 Days in the Sun. My name is Ann Rogers, and in the spring of 2016, I made a mistake that nearly cost me my life. I was 72 years old at the time, on my way to Phoenix to surprise my grandchildren for their birthday. My hybrid car was running low on power, and I took a wrong turn onto a remote road on the White River Indian Reservation in Arizona, looking for a gas station. Soon, the car died completely. I was stranded with my dog, Queenie, and my cat in the middle of the vast, unforgiving desert. For the first day, I just waited, hoping another car might pass. None did. The desert nights were freezing, and the days were scorching hot. I knew you were never supposed to leave your vehicle, but my water was almost gone. The choice became terrifyingly simple. Stay here and die of thirst, or leave and try to find help. I chose to walk. With Queenie trotting by my side, I started climbing the nearby ridges, desperately trying to find a cell signal. There was nothing. The next 9 days were a blur of just trying to survive. I had some knowledge of edible plants from a book I'd read, so I ate clover and whatever else I could find. I drank water from ponds and creeks, using an empty Nutella jar I had in the car. At night, I built a small fire to fight off the freezing temperatures, but the isolation was immense. Everywhere I looked, there was just raw, indifferent wilderness. I was completely and utterly alone. My rescue dog, Queenie, became my little pathfinder, somehow finding safe trails for me to follow. But as the days dragged on, my energy was fading. I found a bleached-out elk carcass and used its bones to spell out "help" in huge letters on the canyon floor, praying a search plane might see it. I was losing hope. Then, on April 9th, a tribal game and fish officer found Queenie wandering alone out of the canyon. Her being found spurred a new aerial search of the area. I heard the helicopter before I saw it. I stood next to a signal fire I'd managed to build and waved my arms frantically. When they landed, the rescuers told me they had been expecting to find a body, not a living person. I had survived for 9 days, lost and alone in the Arizona desert. I was dehydrated and had lost weight, but I was alive. People call my story one of endurance, but when I'm awake in the middle of the night, I don't feel strong. I just feel the ghost of that endless sun and the profound, terrifying loneliness of being one fragile life in a place that couldn't care less if you live or died. Story 4. The visitors at dusk. My family and I were deep in a scenic national forest in Oregon, a place we backpacked to many times before. We were miles from any road, the kind of remote where you don't expect to see another soul for days. My partner and I were setting up our tent for the night, and our 2 young kids, a boy and a girl, were playing near the edge of the little clearing we'd found. The sun was setting, casting these long, deep shadows through the ancient trees. I was hammering in a tent stake when this sudden, strange stillness made me look up. Standing just inside the tree line, about 50 feet from my children, were 3 young men. They hadn't been there a second ago. They were just there, silent. They weren't dressed like hikers. They had on plain, dark clothes. And they were just staring at my kids. There was no expression on their faces at all, just this focused, unnerving intensity. My partner saw them at the exact same moment. A silent, shared wave of pure panic passed between us. I stood up slowly and called out, "Can I help you?" The three figures didn't respond. They didn't even seem to hear my voice. They just kept watching the children. My partner and I both started walking toward our kids, moving to place ourselves between them and the silent men. As we did, the three of them simply vanished. I don't mean they turned and walked away. One moment they were there, and the next, the space they had occupied was just empty forest. We stood there, hearts pounding in our chests, scanning the woods. There was no sound of footsteps, no snapping branches, nothing. They were just gone. We rushed over to our children, asking if they saw the men. They just looked at us, confused. They hadn't seen anyone. We even went over to the spot where the men had been standing. There were no footprints, no broken twigs, no sign that anyone had been there at all. We packed everything up in a terrified frenzy and hiked out in the pitch dark. We have never camped there again. To this day, I have no explanation for what happened. Were they ghosts? A shared hallucination brought on by the isolation and the fading light? Or were they something real that my children were somehow protected from seeing? All I know is that the image of those three silent figures staring at my kids from the edge of the woods is a kind of horror that no amount of logic can ever erase. Story 5. The feeling of being followed. My last solo camping trip was supposed to be simple. A quick overnight hike, find a secluded spot, pitch my tent, enjoy the quiet, and hike back the next day. The first part went fine. The night was peaceful, almost boring. It was the hike back to my car that completely unraveled me. The trail was narrow, with dense woods on both sides. About a mile into the return trip, I got that classic prickly feeling on the back of my neck, that feeling of being watched. I stopped and looked over my shoulder. The trail behind me was empty. I stood still and listened. Nothing but the wind in the leaves. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, the way it does when you're all alone out in the wild. I started walking again, but the feeling only got stronger. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a certainty. I was being followed. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it a presence, keeping pace with me from just inside the tree line, always staying in my blind spot. I picked up my pace, my heart starting to hammer against my ribs. I could hear faint sounds now, a soft footfall on the pine needles, the snap of a small branch, always just behind me and to the side. I fought the urge to break into a full sprint, convinced that doing so would trigger whatever was back there to give chase. I just walked as fast as I possibly could, my hand clutching a can of pepper spray in my pocket, my eyes darting nervously into the woods. The presence was relentless. It felt intelligent. It felt like it was hunting me, and worse, like it was enjoying the fear it was causing. The final half mile to the parking lot was pure agony. I could see my car through the trees, this little symbol of safety that felt a world away. I finally broke and ran, not daring to look back, expecting at any second to feel a hand grab me from behind. I fumbled with my keys, threw my pack in the back, and peeled out of that dirt lot, my tires spitting gravel. I must have driven for 10 miles before I felt like I could actually breathe again. Later, when I got home, I looked up reports for that specific area. My blood turned to ice. Other hikers had reported the exact same sensation of being stalked on that very same trail. One post one found mentioned finding strange tracks that seemed to follow theirs for miles. Another told the story of a hiker who went missing in that forest a few years ago. He was found months later, under circumstances the authorities would only describe as mysterious. I don't know what was following me that day, but I know it was real. And the terror of being hunted by something you cannot see is a feeling that has never, ever left me. The wilderness isn't a park. It's a world that operates on its own terms, with rules we don't understand and inhabitants we might never see. For these witnesses, a simple trip into the outdoors became a lifelong burden, a memory that comes back in the quiet moments of the night. It's a chilling reminder that we are only ever visitors in these ancient places, and sometimes we are not welcome. What do you think was watching from the trees? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you have your own unexplainable story from the deep woods, I'd want to hear it. Subscribe for more true scary stories, and please be careful the next time you decide to venture into the wild. You never know what's really waiting for you. 5 places that changed people forever. True horror stories. There are places in this world stained by a tragedy so profound they refuse to let go. They aren't just locations on a map. They're living wounds, sites of real-life horror that leave a permanent scar on anyone who dares to step inside. Some call it a haunting. Others, a memory so powerful it becomes physical. But whatever you call it, it changes you forever. History is filled with stories of violence and sorrow. But what happens when those stories get imprinted on the very walls where they unfolded? We're not talking about campfire tales or ghost stories. We're exploring 5 real locations where documented tragedies have given way to something inexplicable. These are places that have a measurable, and often terrifying, effect on the people who visit. From a quiet house in Iowa where an axe-wielding killer was never caught, to a glamorous hotel with a dark and deadly history, these are the true stories of places that have altered visitors for the rest of their lives. We'll delve into the history, the tragedy, and the chilling aftermath that continues to this day. Prepare yourself as we journey into the heart of 5 locations that changed people forever. Section 1. The Villisca Axe Murder House in the small, unassuming town of Villisca, Iowa, sits a simple white house on a quiet street. To a passerby, it looks like any other Midwestern home. But on the night of June 9, 1912, this house became the setting for one of America's most brutal and baffling unsolved crimes. The Moore family, Josiah, Sarah, their 4 young children, and 2 visiting neighbor girls, Lena and Ina Stillinger, were all bludgeoned to death with an axe as they slept. The crime scene was deeply unsettling. The killer had moved through the house with a chilling deliberation. Each victim was found in their own bed, their faces covered with bedclothes after the attack. All the mirrors and glass in the house were draped with fabric, a bizarre detail that has fueled speculation for over a century. Despite a massive investigation that named several suspects, including a traveling preacher and even a state senator, the murderer was never identified, leaving the town of Villisca haunted by unanswered questions. Today, the house is no longer a family home, but a museum, preserved to look almost exactly as it did in 1912. It attracts history buffs, true crime fans, and paranormal investigators, many of whom leave with more than just a history lesson. Visitors and overnight guests report a whole list of disturbing experiences. The distinct sound of children's voices echoing from the empty upstairs rooms, toys moving on their own, and objects being thrown by an unseen force. The house's caretaker, Johnny Hauser, who has worked there for years, confirms these accounts, speaking of unexplained sounds and even the feeling of being physically touched by something that isn't there. Skeptics often enter the house determined to debunk the stories, only to leave shaken and convinced. But perhaps the most terrifying testament to the house's power happened in November 2014. A paranormal investigator named Robert Lowerson Jr. was staying overnight. In the early hours of the morning, around the same time the original murders are believed to have happened, his companions heard a cry for help. They found Lowerson alone in the downstairs bedroom, the same room where the 2 Stillinger girls died, with a self-inflicted stab wound to his chest. He was airlifted to a hospital and survived, later telling authorities he had no memory of the event. The incident served as a horrifying modern echo of the violence that stained the house a century earlier, solidifying its reputation as a place that doesn't just scare you, but can physically change you. Section 2. The Hotel Cecil, in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, stands the Cecil Hotel, an establishment with a history so dark it's been called the Hotel of Death. When it opened in 1924, it was a grand, opulent hotel meant for business travelers and tourists. But the Great Depression hit hard, and the Cecil's glamour faded, its hallways becoming a magnet for transients, crime, and a shocking number of tragedies. The hotel has been the site of at least 16 suicides and numerous other violent or unexplained deaths. The Cecil's dark legacy includes being a temporary home to some of America's most infamous serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor in 1985 during his killing spree, allegedly ditching his bloody clothes in the hotel's dumpsters. In 1991, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger chose the Cecil, reportedly as a twisted tribute to Ramirez, and murdered at least 3 women while staying there. The hotel's former general manager, Amy Price, stated that in her 10 years working there, from 2007 to 2017, she witnessed an astonishing 80 deaths. But no case has captured the public's imagination more than the 2013 disappearance and death of Eliza Lam. The 21-year-old Canadian student was staying at the hotel when she vanished. The last known sighting of her was in a now infamous elevator surveillance video. The footage shows Lam behaving erratically, pressing all the buttons, hiding in the corner as if from a pursuer, and making strange, disjointed gestures before disappearing. Nearly 3 weeks later, her naked body was discovered in one of the hotel's rooftop water tanks after guests complained about foul-tasting water and low pressure. Authorities ruled her death an accidental drowning, citing her bipolar disorder as a major factor. However, the logistics of her death have fueled endless speculation. The rooftop was supposed to be locked and alarmed, and the water tank itself was 10 feet tall with a heavy lid that's hard to open. How could she have gotten up there, into the tank, and closed the lid behind her, all on her own? This mystery, combined with the hotel's bloody past, has left a permanent stain on its reputation. Guests and staff have long reported an overwhelming sense of dread, seeing apparitions in the hallways and hearing unexplained noises. The Cecil Hotel is more than just a building. It's a vortex of human suffering, a place where the weight of its history is palpable, leaving those who check in forever unsettled by the darkness that seems to cling to its very walls. Section 3. The Myrtles Plantation. Draped in Spanish moss and southern charm, the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, looks like a beautiful antebellum home. Built around 1796, its wraparound veranda and historic architecture are picturesque. But behind this facade lies a dark and complicated history, earning it the reputation as one of America's most haunted places. While legends claim as many as 10 murders happened here, historical records only confirm one: William Winter. Yet, it's the legends, woven with threads of historical tragedy, that have profoundly affected visitors for decades. The most famous story is that of Chloe, an enslaved woman owned by Clark and Sarah Woodruff. The legend says Chloe was punished for eavesdropping by having her ear cut off, which she then hid under a green turban. Seeking revenge, or maybe just a way to get back in the family's good graces, she baked a cake with poisonous oleander leaves. The plan went horribly wrong, and Sarah Woodruff and 2 of her children died. The other enslaved people, fearing what would happen to them, allegedly hanged Chloe and threw her body in the Mississippi River. While historical records don't confirm the existence of a slave named Chloe, or that the family was poisoned, the story has become the plantation's defining ghost tale. Guests and staff at the Myrtles, now a bed and breakfast, have reported a huge range of paranormal experiences. Many claim to see the apparition of a woman in a green turban wandering the grounds. A famous photo taken in 1992 seems to show the ghostly figure of a woman standing between 2 buildings, an image many believe is Chloe, but she isn't the only spirit said to haunt the property. There are tales of the 2 children, whose reflections supposedly appear in a large antique mirror in the hallway. Visitors have reported seeing handprints on the glass that just won't wipe away. Another prominent ghost is that of William Winter, the one historically verified murder victim. He was shot on the front porch and staggered inside, dying on the 17th step of the grand staircase. Visitors and staff frequently report hearing his heavy, phantom footsteps climbing those stairs, only to stop abruptly on that fateful 17th step. People who've stayed overnight report even more intense activity, like bed shaking, furniture moving on its own, and disembodied voices. Some guests have even fled in the middle of the night, too terrified to stay. The combination of its tragic, though often embellished, history and the persistent, terrifying encounters has solidified Myrtle's Plantation as a place that deeply unnerves and transforms believers and skeptics alike. What do you think? Are these places truly imprinted with the energy of their tragic pasts? Or our own minds just playing tricks on us? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this journey into the world's most mysterious locations, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Section 4. Crescent Park. Unlike the other spots on our list, Crescent Park in Riverside, Rhode Island, isn't a single building, but a public park with a surprisingly dark side. For many years, it was a bustling amusement park, its crown jewel being the magnificent Charles Louvre Carousel, built in 1895. The park also featured a grand ballroom, which tragically burned to the ground in the 1960s. An event some say marked the beginning of the park's decline and the start of its hauntings. The park closed for good in 1979, but the historic carousel was saved and still operates today. However, the cheerful music and whimsical carved horses hide a more somber reputation. After hours, employees have reported eerie occurrences, claiming the carousel's music starts playing on its own, and its lights flicker for no reason. Some stories connect this activity to the spirits of those who may have died in the ballroom fire decades ago. But the most chilling story tied to Crescent Park is a more recent one. In the late 1980s or early 1990s, the park reportedly became the scene of a brutal murder. A man killed a woman and buried her body in the sand along the nearby beach. Though details of the crime are scarce, its emotional residue is said to have permanently stained the area. Visitors who sit near where the horrific act took place have reported being overcome with sudden, intense waves of anger, jealousy, and a profound coldness. This modern tragedy has given birth to a new ghost. People have reported seeing the sorrowful apparition of a young woman walking along the shoreline, staring mournfully out at the water. It's unclear if this is the spirit of the murder victim or another lost soul tied to the park's long history, but the sightings are persistent. The combination of its amusement park past, the tragic fire, and a brutal modern-day murder has created a unique and unsettling atmosphere. Crescent Park serves as a stark reminder that even places built for joy can become shadowed by darkness, leaving a psychological mark on anyone who feels the lingering anger and sorrow that permeate the grounds. Section 5. Hotel del Coronado, with its iconic red-roofed turret and sprawling Victorian architecture. The Hotel del Coronado in San Diego is a landmark of luxury. Opened in 1888, it has hosted presidents, celebrities, and royalty. But beneath its sun-drenched facade lies a haunting story that has captivated guests for over a century: the tragic mystery of Kate Morgan. On Thanksgiving Day in 1892, a beautiful young woman checked into the hotel alone, using the name Lottie Barnard. She was visibly unwell and distressed, telling staff she was waiting for a man to meet her. 5 days later, her companion still hadn't arrived, and she was found dead on an exterior staircase leading to the beach, the victim of a single gunshot wound to the head. Her death was officially ruled a suicide, but the circumstances have always been clouded with suspicion. It was later discovered her real name was Kate Morgan, and she was estranged from her husband. Some theories suggest she was waiting for a lover, while others speculate she may have been murdered. Ever since her death, guests and employees have reported strange phenomena, particularly in and around her former room, now numbered 3,327. The room is the most requested in the hotel, attracting those brave enough to seek out a paranormal encounter. Reported activity includes flickering lights, sudden drafts of cold air, and TVs that turn on and off by themselves. Guests have described feeling phantom touches, hearing disembodied voices, and smelling old-fashioned perfume in the halls. Kate's apparition, often described as a woman in a black lace Victorian dress, has reportedly been seen in her former room and along the corridors. In one particularly chilling account, a guest reported waking up to see Kate's initials mysteriously scrawled into steam on the bathroom mirror. In 1992, the hotel even hired a parapsychologist who conducted a year-long investigation, which documented hundreds of incidents of anomalous phenomena that couldn't be scientifically explained, including moving furniture and disembodied shadows. The story of Kate Morgan has become so intertwined with the hotel's identity that it has transformed from a simple ghost story into a core part of its legacy, forever changing the experience for countless guests who arrive seeking luxury but leave with a chilling tale of their own. Conclusion. From the blood-soaked floors of a small Iowa farmhouse to the glamorous, haunted halls of a seaside resort, these 5 places are chilling monuments to the power of tragedy. They're a testament to the idea that some locations can become repositories of sorrow and violence. Their histories so potent, they leave a tangible, lasting impression on everyone who passes through. Whether you believe these are true hauntings, the result of powerful psychological suggestion, or something else entirely, one thing is certain: the stories are real, the tragedies are real, and for many visitors, the experience is life-altering. These places remind us that the past is never really gone. Sometimes it's just waiting in the shadows, ready to reach out and change you forever.